Check this out. How do you think I made this texture? Do you think I made it by scanning some sort of fabric? Or do you think I modeled the geometry and then baked the texture? Well, guess what? This is 100% procedural. Everything, everything is made using the shader editor. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how is this even possible? Well then, wear a helmet and place a bowl below your chin, because your mind is about to explode and your jaw is about to drop. So in the last video I said that this texture is an advanced topic and we're not ready, but upon some more thinking I managed to simplify this significantly. So here it is, the procedural fabric fiber tutorial. Alright, let's begin. So this is a simple plane and I subdivided it a few times and added a subdivision modifier and further subdivided 3 more times. So that's just a simple setup. First things first, let's change the engine to cycles and change the feature set to experimental and change the device to GPU. Go to the material tab and scroll all the way down to the bottom in the settings panel, and the displacement method, choose displacement and bump, like so. Alright, now let's begin making our material. So first create a UV node, and here we can select the channel we want to use, and in this case there is only one UV channel. Okay, now create a mix RGB node and place it there, and now create a value node. Connect the UV to color 1 and value to color 2, increase the factor to 1 and change the mode to multiply. For now let's set the value to 1, and that's it. Let's bring everything back a little bit, like so. Now create a separate XYZ node and connect the color to the vector. Control Shift 2 times to visualize the y-axis, and now let's render the viewport. We can see that we have a nice vertical gradient. Now create a math node and change the operation to multiply and multiply the y-axis by 2. Now we can see that the values here is a little bit brighter, and this is because the maximum value over here is now 2 and not 1 anymore, and now 1 is somewhere at the center. Okay, so this is now a range from 0 to 2. Okay, alright, Shift D to duplicate the math node, and this time choose modulo and modulo by 1. Now we have 2 identical gradients from 0 to 1. Alright, now create a color ramp node and add a white key in the center and set the right key to black. And now we have this kind of gradient. Okay, now copy the gradient and get rid of this center key and set the right key back to white and bring up the black key a little bit, and now we have something like this. Alright, let's bring everything back a little bit and bring the principal shader a little bit higher, like so. And now let's visualize what these gradients mean. So let's create a displacement node and connect the color to the height and connect the displacement to the output, and Control Shift to click on the principles to make it the shader. And now we have a nice displacement like so. This displacement is perfectly sharp, and that is because here we have a nice sharp gradient, and we don't actually want this sharp displacement. We want a nice curve, roundish kind of displacement instead. So add a RGB curve and place it here. I mean, not there. Place it like so. And now bring up the center area a little bit like so. So now we have a nice curve and a round curve like so. And as a result, our displacement is now rounded. And let's bring down the intensity a little bit, maybe 0.4. And as you can see, we now have a nice round displacement. And the curvature here dictates how the plane is displaced, alright, like so. And in this case we want a perfectly round displacement, so we bring up the center point a little bit until we have a perfectly round displacement. Maybe like that. Alright, I think that's enough. Alright, so now let's group everything from the separate XYZ, I mean from after the separate XYZ to the curve, and Control G to group everything like so, and hit tab to go out of the group, and name this one round waves like so, and bring it up here. Next, create another math node and connect the y-axis like so. Change the operation to modulo and modulate by 1. And copy this and connect the nodes. This time change the operation to greater than, and here set the value to 0.5. And let's preview it. Now we have a very nice stripy, black and white stripy pattern. Okay, so let's set this back to 1 or maybe 2 so that we can see what is going on. Next, duplicate the math node and change the operation to multiply, and just leave the other value as 0.5. Now Shift D to duplicate the math node again, this time add it with the x-axis like so. And now copy the modulo node and connect the add to the modulo like so. Okay, now we have something like this. Let's increase the value here so that we can see things a little bit more clearly. Okay, and let's get rid of the displacement. So this is what we have right now, and we're pretty much halfway done, and this looks nothing like the pattern we're looking for, right? But stay with me in this. So let's create a color ramp node, and again let's add a white key at the center and change the right key to black like so, and add a RGB curve. And this time we will not use a ground curve like this, but we will make an S kind of curve like so. Okay, let's connect this to the height, and let's visualize what this does. Set the value back to 1, I mean 2 maybe, to see what it does. So now we have a nice wavy kind of pattern like so. Alright, let's rearrange our nodes a little. Now copy the math node again, and this time connect the color of the round wave. But this is not supposed to be color, but let's just go and fix that real quick. So this is the output node of the node group, and select the node tab here, and change this name to, I mean not change the name, just delete it entirely. And let's just connect the alpha here so that we have a nice gray slot, and connect the color there, and rename this to just out for now. Alright, so connect this to the math node and change the operation to greater than, and the second value set to 0. Alright, let's position it here. Copy this math node again and connect these like so, and set the operation to multiply, and now we have something like this. Let's get rid of the displacement. Alright, this is what we have right now. And finally, let's add this to the output here like so. Change the operation to math, and now this will be our final waveform. As you can see, we now have some very round and nice looking waves. Let's bring down the displacement a little bit like so. Alright, so this is our waveform. And now let's group everything. Before we group everything like so, let's hold down shift and then right click and drag over the wires. This will group the wires together like this. Okay, now let's select everything from after the separate XYZ to the final add, and Control G to group them together. Alright, hit tab to go out of the group, and name this one waves. Nah, thread, more likely. Alright, so now we have one direction of the threads. We need another direction perpendicular to this one. Okay, so let's Control Shift D to duplicate this node and maintain the connections. And now we just switch the connection like so, and now we have a different wave perpendicular to the other one like so. And now we have to combine these to make our pattern. And let's create another math node and change the operation to maximum. And you can see that the two waveforms are not very well aligned, so we need to offset one of these in order to make them align. So create another math node and copy it to the other connection as well, and change this one to 0.25 and this one to 0.25 as well. And there we go. We have a nice looking fabric. And let's go in the node again and go into this node and change this color ramp in order to change the thickness of the threads like so. Alright, let's go back out, and we're supposed to be able to see through these holes, but right now we cannot. So we need to create an alpha for the fabric. Okay, and that is quite easy. Let's just go in the thread node groups and connect this greater than node to the output. Okay, and let's rename the output. This one is height and this one is alpha like so, and copy this maximum node and combine the alpha, and now we have a nice alpha for our material. Alright, so the next thing to do is to create the material for the fabric. Create a diffuse shader, a translucent shader, a glossy shader, and a transparent shader. Mix the translucent shader with a null shader like so, and lower the factor a little bit, and then mix this with the diffuse shader, and instead of using the mix node we will use the add node instead. So with the mix shader selected, hit Shift S and change the shader type to add shader. Now this hotkey belongs to the Node Wrangler add-on, and you need to turn on the Node Wrangler add-on in order to use this hotkey, alright? Okay, mix this with the glossy shader and then mix with the transparent shader and connect everything to the output. Create a Fresnel node and connect it to the factor of the mix with the glossy, and create a math node and set the operation to multiply, and change the value here to maybe 0.15, and there we go. We now have a nice fabric material. Alright, let's create a RGB node and connect the color to the diffuse and the translucent, and maybe change the color to blue a little, like so. And now let's create a bump node. Connect the math node to the height of the bump, and connect the normal to the normal of the bump to the normal input of whatever that has a normal input, like so. Now you can see that the bump look a little bit sharp. This means that the bump is too strong. And take a look at the bump node, and we can see that this height is supposed to be 1 meter, and the width of this plane is 2 meters, so obviously the bump is too high. So let's set this down to something like 0.1, maybe, like so. Alright, now let's connect the alpha to the mix node with the transparent shader. There we go. And now we have a nice fabric material. So we can now increase the value here to decrease the size of the pattern. And since the size is now much smaller, the bump is too strong again. So we need to set this to something really slow. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that will do. So that's it. We have a nice fabric, and let's bring back our other piece of fabric and visualize our hard work, and increase the value a little bit more. Maybe we should increase it even more. Yeah, like so. And now the bump map is too strong again, so we should set this down to 0.005. Yeah, that will do. Now the fabric texture is complete, created by using nothing but a bunch of math operations. It's hard to imagine, yes? So now you can go around and boast about how you can create a fabric fiber texture using nothing but numbers, and then you can just tell them to piss off when they ask you how.